rocking chair. While my granddaddy's rocking in his rocking chair.
Tell us a little bit about how you got started in the music in the first place and what your musical influences are.
First of all, my influences were many. Most all the hillbilly performers in the years of the 40s and 50s, early 50s. Anybody from Eddie Arnold all the way up to or different styles, you know, to Ernest Tubb, to Roy Acuff,
right,
to Bob Wills and the Texas Playboys. You know, we lived in Texas and lived Bob Wills' music as well. You know,
right.
And I also was influenced by the gospel quartets, the old 4-part harmony gospel quartets, like the Blackwood Brothers and the Stamps Quartet and a lot of area quartets. They were great. So that's where I learned. I always believed that I picked up a lot of showmanship tips from them. They were great showmen. But anyway, I lived with my grandparents, and we moved to Weatherford, Texas. My granddad bought another farm there. And in school, I met a couple of guys. One of the guys in my class was Jimmy Galbraith. Jimmy Galbraith was a guitar player. And his brother had already graduated from high school, Kenneth Galbraith. And he played mandolin, actually. He played the mandolin at the first times we got together. And they had a singer that they worked with named Richard Stevens, who was kind of a Eddie Arnold type.
Right.
Didn't sound like Eddie Arnold, but he was very smooth, very fine singer, you know, vocalist, and I always admired him. And he sort of got a little. We started doing kind of some upbeat things, you know, and we were getting into the rhythm and blues songs from like the Midnighters, and then of course Little Richard and Fats Domino and Chuck Berry showed up, and you know, we said we got to be able to do that, you know, and. You know, it was just great music, and then eventually Elvis occurred, but the way the King Records deal turned out, the boys and I were booked on a little gig over in Fort Worth, near where we live, and there was a big automobile dealer there, and he was on one of the main thoroughfares in downtown Fort Worth. And we played an outdoor show, and we alternated sets with a group, kind of a semi-big band group, black group that played great stuff, you know, and everything. So they'd play a set, and then we'd come back and play a set. There was a radio station in Fort Worth that was very popular with the teenagers and us and everything, and they were playing all their Chuck Berry and things like that, and records that nobody else would ever even heard of or played and everything. But now you knew them because they played them on KNOK, you know.
Yeah.
And one of the disc jockeys there was named Big Jim Randolph.
I've heard of him.
And eventually wound up going to Los Angeles and worked there for years, and then he passed away, unfortunately. But he was such a super nice guy. He always was nice. We'd been to the studios to visit once before, just to look around and say hello, and he showed us who. So we knew him. And so he had the idea, because there were only 3 of us, and we could fit in. He was broadcasting on remote from inside the showroom on the radio. And he thought it'd be a little diversion to have us come in and play a set, you know, a couple, 3 songs.
Yeah.
So we did on the off when we weren't playing outside. Then we went back and did our next set outdoors, and we're out there, you know, and we were just about to wind up, and this kid came running out. He said, "Hey, man, they want you in the studio. Go in the studio now. Bring your instruments. Big Jim wants you back on the radio, live on the radio." That's what we played it. Turns out they had been calling the dealership. They'd been calling the radio station and found out. And they also were the kids were calling to say how long are they going to be here. And we noticed that the traffic had kind of increased. We just thought, well, that's normal Saturday afternoon fare. But all of a sudden, after we did the second set, they jammed up the street outside and everything.
Yeah.
Cut to the real thing we're after here is Big Jim said as we left, man, he looked at me and he said, you need to be on record. You know, he said, you guys all need to be on record. I'm going to look for a deal for you. I know some people, and so, yeah, okay. And sure enough, in probably about 3 weeks, I guess, he called and got me out of class in high school.
Yeah.
He said, man, you guys, I got a friend coming in from King Records. He's coming in, going to be here a 3 days. And here's the hotel where he's staying, the motel. You guys get your instruments, get over here this afternoon by about 5 o'clock. Can you get here by 5 o'clock? I said, we'll get there, you know. And we did. Got there set up in his room. Ralph Bass is who it was.
Mm-hmm.
And we did a couple of songs, and I, for the life of me, do not remember what the songs were. I've been asked that many times, but we were so oblivious to what was going on, what the songs were. We were just in awe of being around this guy, you know. And he just said, oh, that's enough. I said, yeah, that's great. That's what I'm looking for. That's great. Yeah. He said, I'll set up a record session and we'll come back to Dallas. We'll do it at Jim Beck's studio.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. He said, I'll send you the contracts, you know, to me. Pointed to me. Mm-hmm. I said, okay. You know. So that's the way it happened. And they scheduled the date, and we recorded, I think somewhere around late April, May or something like that. And we recorded If I Had Me a Woman, Just So You Call Me,
Yeah.
Granddaddy's Rockin', and Half-Hearted Love.
How many singles did you get for King altogether?
Well, we had 4 sessions, a total of 16 or 17 songs, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's 7 singles is the answer to the question,
Right.
but so there were 14 sides.
There were a lot
plus,
more songs.
Yeah, some other things.
Right.
At least 2 other songs.
Mm-hmm. How long did you stay with them?
See, probably, that was in 1956, by the way.
That's when you got the contract.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The first record came out in the spring of 1956.
Yeah.
So, 57. Actually, 2 years because I went in the military toward the end of 57,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the last release came out, which was probably Little Miss Linda, I think,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In 1958, early 58.
Right.
And they knew that I was going into service until we mutually agreed not to renew the contract. Because
Right.
I could have gotten out of it if I wanted to anyway, and they said, well, you know, we can't really promote you while you're in there, you know, and then we'll go overseas. So
Yeah.
it was no problem.
Yeah.
So that was it.
And which one of your singles would you consider, the most successful one as far as the radio play and television exposure is concerned?
Yeah, I'm glad you made that distinction because
Yeah.
I think probably You Ain't Treat Me Right, really,
Mm-hmm.
because that's the song that led me to, and that was sort of nationwide spread, not a big national hit, but it's different areas of the country, and one of the areas that counted was where Alan Freed was on the air,
Right.
and he put the record on, and eventually I did. They brought me up to New York to play one of the.
As a matter of fact, we got a
shows.
picture here. I believe that's the
Just
picture.
happen to have a picture. That's
Right,
great.
just happens to
That's
have
good.
it right here.
Yeah. Oh,
this
yeah.
is the picture.
Yes.
You on that show, Alan Freed show,
Yes,
right?
yes. This photograph was taken from the stage of the Brooklyn Paramount Theater
Wow.
in the Christmas show of 1956.
Who else was on the show? Any big names?
George Hamilton IV was on the show. We were
Hamilton IV,
the hillbilly
Right.
contingent, you know.
Uh-huh.
And with that, we met there and became fast friends and so on. So we didn't always have been. But the headliners, let's see, who all was there? The Moon Glows. Shirley and Lee, I believe, were there. Were they doing that? Help me out here. I get that up. Oh, the Cadillacs, yeah.
The Cadillacs,
Yeah,
right?
the Cadillacs and
Little Richard.
Oh yeah, how can you forget him?
Exactly. He was the headliner. As a matter of fact, I believe you're gonna be appearing at that show like next year. Little Richard's gonna headline the show. It's gonna be that Green Bay.
Oh yeah,
festival.
yeah.
And Little Richard's gonna be there as well, right?
Rockin' 50s number 3, I think it is.
Number 3. That's right. Yeah, but we're digressing. How about you tell us a little bit about what you did after you got out of the military?
Well, the thing that was kind of crushing blow is when I got home from the military, the rockabilly thing had just
That out.
disappeared. Yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't get work with rockabilly stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't even want to talk to you, you know. And it was amazing. And a lot of the other guys that had been involved in it had started doing their country music again. I said, well, hey, I can do that, you know. And I had the radio sort of background going for me at the time, so I got involved in country radio. It was real easy to get to and do and enjoyed it. And so I got doing country things and issued a few singles locally, statewide, and like that. I rented a guy named Major Bill Smith, who a lot of people will recognize as a producer of Hey Baby and Hey Paula. We used to call him Hey Major. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. And how long did you stay? When you got back from the army, you didn't really go back to where you were born, right? You started kind of like traveling around the United States.
Yeah,
sort of.
yeah. Actually, I did go for a few months and worked in a station there in the Fort Worth, Dallas area, and then I had a friend of mine who at another radio station had been a big top 40 disc jockey for a long time. Bill Ennis was his name. Bill Ennis, great guy, and he had recommended me. I often thought. He said to me once, he said, I needed to get you out of town. I said, you don't think that's a good compliment, but in Atlanta, Georgia.
Right.
And that was a huge move because country music was beginning to sort of break loose a little more than it always had been on the radio, at least. Because there were very few stations at the time that were major radio stations, first of all. Licensed to the city and good coverage, you know, broadcast signal. Most of the country stations that were on the air that were full-time were outlying stations trying to, you know, get known in the local market.
Right.
We did that in the Dallas market, you know, the little station in Grand Prairie. The studios and everything were out in a cotton field outside of Grand Prairie, away from Dallas. But it got in, the signal got in, so we made dents in all their ratings, and you know, it was kind of a funny deal. Well, I've been real fortunate. I have worked with a lot of people. I worked with, in the 50s, I had a very short career in the first part of in the 50s.
Because you had to go to the army, of course.
But Joe Poovey, Groovy Joe Poovey and I worked a lot together, and Jackie Lee Cochran and I met in Fort Worth, and you know, some guys like that and everything. But later on the Big D Jamboree, when I got back into Dallas after working around the Dallas area, our radio station was broadcasting a portion of the show. So they wanted me to come over and, you know, sing some songs and do, you know, talk some things. So I became a semi-regular with the country music thing. And so I got to...
On Big D Jamboree.
Yeah, Big D Jamboree. Yeah. But Sonny James was a great friend of mine, and still is, for that matter. But George Hamilton IV. And, God, it's hard to think about it. But in the early 60s, I met... a lot of the great country stars too. Because I had a chance to visit with them when they'd come by with their records and everything. Wynn Stewart, Glenn Campbell, Tammy Wynette, David Houston, which I already knew for a long time. Yeah. Claude King and and Johnny Horton, his predecessors with Tillman. I knew them really well.
Yeah.
For a while, and just scores of people. But Buck Owens, Merle Haggard, and guys like that would live on the West Coast, so it was hard to get to know them immediately in person. But they started touring through the country, and I got to. Buck and I hit it off really well, and he loved radio. As obvious the fact that eventually he owned several radio stations.
Oh yeah.
So he was a great promoter, self promoter, and he realized the power of radio, time. And so it was a number one promotion thing on his list. And then we spent a lot of time together off and on through the years, and when we were working on different projects, and I just always liked Buck. He was great. He had his detractors, as anybody who's successful does,
Yeah.
But he was a businessman. He was a hard businessman, but he was fair. If he made a deal with him, you had to stick to it. And he made you stick to it. And if he made a deal with you, his promise was gold.
Oh yeah.
He did what he said he would do. A lot of the artists didn't understand that. They, came in and they just offered him the moon, and he said, "Well, no, I really don't." And they do. And then when things didn't work out, they say, "Well, Buck sold all my songs." Well, that's not right at all. It's not true at all.
No.
And so he got a bad rap on that kind of thing.
Yeah.
He and Merle kind of were crossways initially. When Merle realized that, hey, it's my songs that he really wants,
Yeah.
Which, again, was not true, really. He wanted Merle, too, because Merle was a great talent, and as proven over the years, and still is, But,
yeah.
So those things happened, It was great. But then Roy Clark and Tom T. Hall, just so many. It's hard to. I could just almost,
ones.
Well, you may recall this. We were listening to a CD track, a compilation recently.
Yeah, right.
While we were here, and every song would come up seemed almost. I got a story about that guy. Yeah.
Tammy Wynette,
Charlie
Bill
Pride.
Charlie Pride. Yes. Yeah.
It's with Don Williams and people.
Because you did, you lived in Nashville for a while.
Short time, yeah. I was always told that every hillbilly ought to have his time limit, how limited or not, in Nashville, and it was just kind of a myth, but I probably was true in retrospect. And I moved there and excuse me, and because I had signed with Epic Records by that time.
That's what I wanted to ask you about. Yeah.
And I just felt like I needed to take a little break from radio and try this thing out, And so I moved there, and sure enough, the time was pivotal to me. Pitiful is what it sounds like what I'm trying to say, but no, it was pivotal to me. Yeah. I changed labels. The Epic thing was, they had some changes in their organization, and we were just, a lot of us, outside David Houston and Tammy Wynette. Quite strange, because we'd created their way up to the top, and they showed us the door. Yeah. Not really, we asked for the door. We asked for the door because they were promoting, all their promotion was going into them, and that was.
And then you got another record deal.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't anything personal against them, because they deserved it,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
The guy that had been instrumental in signing me, the ex-president of Epic Records, got a new deal as a president of GRT Records.
Right.
And opened up a Nashville office and brought in a producer, a very familiar name with rockabilly people, Tommy also,
Tommy also, absolutely.
I didn't know him real closely. I'd met him before, though. It some big shows in Fort Worth. So he was in our band, and so Lynn Levy is the is the record executive I'm talking about. He came to Nashville. He said, he called me, let's have lunch. Okay, we did. And he said, well, I'll just lay this out to you. I hope you're ready to go to work, because I know you're just leaving Epic. I know you're about finished with that. And he said, I've been checking up on you, boy. I said, I want you over here with me.
Yeah.
And I said, fine, let's go. And so we met down to the office with Tommy the next day. And he said, hey, Tommy was never one to get real excited. Hey, man, good to have you, man. He was quite a guy.
Oh, yeah.
So we did some stuff pretty good, and then that label folded after about a year or so. And that's one of the problems you ran into.
Absolutely. And I mean, how many labels did you work for? I mean,
if I get on one more label and sell one record, I will have sold 1 million records on a different label. It seems that way.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You worked so many.
Yeah, and Major Bill Smith, I wouldn't give up.
Exactly.
But it's like if you look at my radio resume, it's well, this guy can't keep a job. He's been all over the country. You know? But Major Bill was a great example. He would have a new label every time he put out a record. He'd put a different name on it, because he had to get it around the distributors. A lot of the distributors didn't like him, and I won't go into that. But it was it was funny. We had Jardin, we had Meridine. It's usually somebody he knew or something. Lee Cam, and I don't know. It was really amazing.
Yeah. And of course, eventually you ended up working for Rocking Ronnie Weisner. Could you tell me a little bit how you how you got in touch with him? I mean, how long did you stay with that label? I know you got a lot of albums for him.
Yeah, we did 3 album projects.
Rolling Rock, that's the name of the
Rolling Rock, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was his dig at Rolling Stone. He named it from a little magazine. Rolling Rock was his magazine first.
Right.
And he said, I'm not as big time as Rolling Stone, I just put it Rolling Rock.
Yeah.
I said, okay.
Yeah.
But he's a great guy. I moved to Los Angeles in 1971.
Right.
Yeah, that was when it was. In fact, it was about 2 weeks after the big earthquake they had there.
Right, I remember that.
What was I thinking,
Terrible
but it was
earthquake, 1971.
Yeah, it worked out well, though. Went to a radio station there, and it was doing pretty well, So, and I'd always kind of wanted to go Hollywood. But just to be in Los Angeles, I wanted to be.
Right.
Just had grown up that way. And Ronnie called the radio station, and we chatted on the phone a little bit, and he was telling me, and he wanted to do an interview. He set up and he was telling me, he just came right at it. He said, you've got a big record, got a big guy in Europe. And I said, what? I knew I had some records out, 1 or 2 maybe or something. And I'd get a stray letter that got forwarded to me somehow or another, through the mail. But he's the one that enlightened me about what was happening, particularly in England at the time. He was discussing, and it turned out it was all over.
Because that's when the rockabilly revival was just starting, right?
Yeah.
Around that time, early 70s.
Yeah. So he asked me to do the interview. He came down. We had the live interview, and in the process of talking, after the interview was complete, he taped, he said, "Man, I want you to come by. I want you to introduce you. This guy is renting a room from me at my house, and I tend to lapse into his accent because it's so infectious, when you talk to him." And he said, "I want you to come by and meet Ray Camping." And the name was kind of familiar with me. Ray was from Austin, but in those days, that would have been a long way. That was totally,
like Central Texas.
Yeah, way down.
You're up north.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I went by and met Ray. And, of course, we had a lot in common and everything. And we just hit it off well. We were sitting around, talking and joking and remembering and stuff. And Ronnie's just, he was just soaking all this up because he is a huge fan in addition to a businessman. And he said, "Mind you guys ought to record something. I want to record something, and everything." And his first idea with me was to try to get the King Masters, because he was already reissuing a lot of things. He was picking up masters that had been not really big sellers, or the labels had gone dark, or whatever. And he was trying to make lease jobs and all kind of things. But then the kicker was, there was a guitar that he had kept in his living room, you know, all the time. Had always had, I guess, you know, and it was laying around, sitting around in the corner or something. I went over, we were just talking to something. I walked over and picked it up, just out of habit, I guess. So it was kind of tuning the thing, you know. And Ray and I were still talking, and we were talking about songs, from the things that we remembered. Songs he was talking about, songs that he, you know, just couldn't ever get out of his mind. And I remembered a song, and the artist, who was on one of the opening acts on an Elvis Presley concert that came into Fort Worth. We went over to you know, see Elvis and see the show, and had a chance to visit with him for a while backstage. But the guy that I'm telling you about is Rudy Tootie Grisell.
Oh yeah.
And he had this song called Ducktail. Now I never forgot that song. You know, it just stuck with me. And we were talking about it, and he said, yeah. And I said, I remember him now. He said, well, I want to mess with my ducktail, you know. Ronnie Wise would just go, I mean, he just flipped over the couch. He just ran. He says, hold on, I'll be right back. He came in and he brought back a TAC 2 or 4 track tape machine. And set it down. He said, I want to record this. And I said, okay. And he got his microphone hooked up, and he's looking. He said, oh, shoot. Kind of like that, you know. Oh, shoot. I don't have a microphone stand. I said, that's no problem. I just pushed the door open, you know, to the
And just
living room.
hang it. Yeah.
Hung it over across the
Yeah.
the door, and that's how we recorded. He started rolling the tape, and I just, you know, Ray had another guitar that he just went back and brought back up. So he just played along, and I played along. I said, don't mess with my ducktail. And then he kept that. I don't know. I'm not sure we did any other songs that day, because I was kind of, I had an appointment that I had to get to. And so Ray he said, let me take it in and, you know, sit with it and do some overdubbing and some guitar parts, and, you know, this, that, and the other. So he did that, and they called me about a week and said, hey, we got to have another song. Ray says, Ronnie wants to put this out as a single. I said, okay. So I came by and I was thinking, what am I going to do? You know, I mean, on the way in, I had an idea for something. I came in and I listened to the Ducktail. I said, yeah, that's great. I said, well, I got this song in mind. You know, said, oh, good, it's a new song. I said, yeah, it's good. It's Sidetrack Mama is what it was. And
I remember that one, yeah.
So we did that in about one take, you know.
Yeah.
And Ray had worked a little bit on the Ducktail thing and was going to do some more. And I said, put that out. You know, don't waste your time.
Yeah.
You know, it sounds good like it is. And so Ronnie issued the single, and it did well. So then we started doing tunes for an album. And like I say, I wound up eventually doing three albums for the project, and they used some for compilation albums and stuff.
And Ray Campi was always the guy who worked with you, like recording all those instrumental parts.
Pretty much. Toward the last, Ronnie had moved to another location and had a little bigger play. He remade his garage into like a studio, you know, and Ray was getting really busy with his work, his playing, and his teaching. He was a teacher by day.
Right.
And Ronnie was just he was in such a hurry to get everything done. He started bringing in people he knew, guitar players and piano players and everything, you know, and just using them, just kind of feel them out. And he'd put them in, hey, I want you to play on this. And they'd say, who is that? And he said, yeah, that's who it is. You know, it was funny, but
Yeah.
There were some different guitar players, and so, but mostly Ray was the one that would that'd do this stuff.
Back to Ronnie Wisner. I understand he was the person who actually set up the first European tour for you. Is that correct?
He was trying to set distribution for Rolling Rock Records, is what he wanted a distributor to handle it in England and for the rest of the country. So there was a fellow named David Harris, and he and David, sort of put in an agreement. And David wanted to be the Rolling Rock guy over here, and so David is actually the one that came up with the idea of being maybe having a tour. He said it really help if we could get these guys over here. Which is true,
Yeah.
And so, but Ronnie was the point man, obviously, and so he's the one who talked us into doing it. It didn't take him about 5 minutes, but it was worked out. So that's how that came about. And but David actually did all the work in putting together the thing and managing the business and the money and all those kinds of things, the venues. So that happened, in 1977, and
that was the first time the first time you went to Europe.
Yeah, with Ray and I shared the bill and his boys, the Rockabilly Rebels, and it was just, it was magic. It was just something that, again, one of those accidents waiting to happen, I guess, because we had a 3-week tour. And we worked. I think we had one night off in the whole tour.
Was it England, right? You went to England.
Yeah, it was in England.
Right.
And we may have done one show in Holland. I'm not sure. Can't remember. Because I don't remember. Don't hold me to that. But
yeah.
But I know we played tons of places.
Right. In the following years.
Yeah, in the following years, right. Because the funny thing was, we did the tour, completed it, and we're going to the airport. We're headed for Heathrow Airport to go back home. And we were just Ray and I were kind of talking, on the way. And I said, "Well, man, this was great." He said, "Yeah, man, it was." Whew. He said, "You think we'll ever get to go back?" I said, "No." I said, "He just considered it a great." An honorable trip and a great vacation and just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But it didn't occur to me that it would be that big. Well, little did we know that became known as the infamous Rolling Rock Tour.
Yeah.
Of 1977, and because we were on the BBC and all that stuff and everything, and went to. Locations, and they were always packed. Every place was packed. It was amazing.
Yeah. It's been 30 years now, and you're still touring, and you come to Europe pretty much every year.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's amazing.
Sometimes a couple of times a year.
It is just. It's hard to believe.
Yeah.
There are a lot of. I study. I don't study it like a scholar, but I think about it every once in a while, and. The question would arise, well, what do you think? I don't know. I mean, I really don't. I have several theories and ideas and stuff, but that changes occasionally, until things happen.
Yeah.
And what's beautiful about it is the rock and roll folks, or rockabilly folks in particular, love the music. I mean, they live it, they feel it, and they
That's true.
It's their now music. It's not like they're living in the past.
No,
and you can't go there again. I mean, you can't live there again, but you can respect it, And,
absolutely.
And which I do. And it's.
And there are so many young people getting into it, every year.
Yeah, it continues to regenerate itself. Just when you think it's kind of dying out, all of a sudden, hey man, guess what's going? And people just go, and I'm about on my 3rd generation of fans here all of a sudden, or not all of a sudden, but gosh, I see people I see middle-aged people on my tours now that were teenagers at the original '77 tour.
Yeah.
Saw the shows and stuff like that. And they've got kids, and now their kids have got kids, and it's it seems
really great,
it's
yeah.
almost like the audience gets younger. It's something crazy about it, It
Yeah.
changes.
And how many times have you been to Holland? I understand this is not your first time.
As we sit here today, it is the sixth. This was the sixth.
Right.
visit, Yeah.
Because you did a couple of those rock house shows back in the 90s.
With Bert and
the
Francis,
80s.
yeah, in the '80s, yeah.
Yeah, right.
I think the first one we did in maybe '78 or so, '78,
As
'79,
early as that, yeah.
something like that.
And then you did one in the 90s, like shortly before they stopped doing that.
Yeah,
thing, yeah.
yeah. We did. I think around '96. I'm going to say,
Right.
And that's the last time that I worked with them. They had asked my agent, my demon agent in Wales, Paul Barrett.
Paul Barrett, yeah.
Got you in there, Paul. He called a couple of three times, and they wanted me to come do their. They came up all of a sudden to do this final show, that they were going to do and everything. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it took them only a week to organize that or something. And they were in a rush.
Yeah.
But I could. I was going. As a matter of fact, I was on the way that weekend to work the first Viva Las Vegas show that I worked with Tom Ingram out there in Las Vegas, and there's no way I could have, canceled. I would not cancel it first of all, but in favor of another show. And I really would. I appreciated them. Paul positioned it to me as they want their acts that they had so many times, and their favorites. And yeah. They just don't want to pay as much,
Yeah.
No, that's not true. But anyway, I hated that I had to miss it because they were a pretty driving force in my estimation in Holland.
Oh yeah, definitely. They were
all over
at
Europe
the time.
I think,
Yeah.
because of their record
The whole Europe,
sales. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And are you touring much over there in the United States nowadays?
Not a whole lot. I do. I'm fortunate. I'm in the time in my life I can pick and choose. And
Yeah, absolutely.
and I hope that continues. But
Great
never
position. Yeah.
Know. Never know. But I'll do it as long as it lasts.
Mm-hmm.
Or as long as that lasts.
Well, we are certainly enjoying doing this tour with you, and it was a great show last night.
Yeah.
The crowd went wild.
Yep.
I'm really looking forward to the show tonight.
Yeah, that's going to be fun, and we should. I hope after they see this, they'll just keep the disc on and watch. Watch the rest some of the stuff. Hope they get some good stuff. We'll know when we're watching this, won't we?
Absolutely, absolutely.
But I would like to say to everybody, you bought this disc, and hopefully you weren't even, if you weren't even there, you bought it, but. We appreciate your support, and it's people like you that keep us in business, along with some folks in the industry, that we owe a great gratitude to.
Absolutely. Well, I guess we got to be going. We got that great show coming up in just a couple hours.
Yeah.
So we better hit the road.
Yeah.